Welcome to another episode of AutoMundial, the weekly car news and review show where this week we're taking a look at the first mid-engine Chevrolet Corvette.
Plus we have the new Audi RS6, the latest Nissan Juke, a 7-seat SUV from Seat, and a 1400 horsepower electric Mustang.
That's all still to come. First though,
Nissan's four-door saloon, the Maxima, will be celebrating 40 years in production next year. To mark the occasion, Nissan has launched a special edition for the North American market. To help it stand out, the Maxima 40th Anniversary Edition gets plenty of unique details. It gets some bespoke pearl paint with a black roof, 19-inch alloy wheels, lots of black exterior trim and a fancy interior with red upholstery, dark chrome and embossed seats. It still comes equipped with Nissan's perennial 3.5-litre V6, good for 300 horsepower and 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. The Maxima is still manufactured in Tennessee and is Nissan's longest-serving model in the USA.
this is the new Audi RS6, and we think it's fair to say that it's no ordinary estate car. But you knew that already, just from its wide arches, immense grille and enormous alloys. Old RS6s may have been sleepers, but this one is loud and proud. It's 80mm wider than a standard car, while the 22-inch alloys show off the biggest brakes ever fitted to an Audi production car. In short, the RS6 is fast, and it wants everyone to know about it. In fact, the only panels it shares with the regular A6 Avant are the roof, the doors and the boot lid. Under the bonnet, you'll find a 4-litre bi-turbo V8, putting out 592 brake horsepower and a staggering 590 pounds-feet of torque. 0 to 62 is dealt with in just 3.6 seconds, making this big estate car a match for many modern supercars. Top speed is limited to 155, but for an extra bit of cash, Audi will take away the limiter, letting you hit 189 miles per hour. All that torque is fed through an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission driving all 4 wheels. There's a very clever sport differential divvying it all up between the fronts and rears, meaning there's always going to be plenty of grip, and as you gain speed, the optional air suspension automatically lowers the car, helping to keep it flat in the corners. It sounds like an absolute animal then, but Audi insists that this is still a usable, everyday family car. For starters, this is actually a hybrid, sort of. It uses the familiar 48-volt mild hybrid setup that we've seen in other big Audis, allowing for quieter stop-starts and better fuel economy. To further improve that, the RS6 also features cylinder deactivation, allowing half of the cylinders to shut down when on a cruise. Despite all that though, this is still a very thirsty car. The WLTP economy figure is just over 22 miles per gallon. Small price to pay though, right? Inside it's just as impressive, if a little more conventional. There are a few fancy RS bits like the sports seats trimmed in Napa leather and Alcantara, and a special steering wheel with aluminium gearshift paddles. But it's otherwise a standard A6 cabin, and that's no bad thing. The build quality is second to none, and there's easily enough space for 4 adults to travel comfortably, along with all their luggage in the massive boot. One special little detail we love though is the infotainment. It appears to be the same unit you get in a regular car, but this one also features some RS-specific features like temperature readouts and even a G-meter.
However, the RS6 doesn't have the fast luxury estate market to itself. This is the newly updated Mercedes-AMG E63, a subtler, more demure alternative to the Hulk-like Audi. The styling has been tweaked along with the interior and aerodynamics. Like the RS6, it uses a twin-turbocharged V8 and all-wheel drive. It produces 604 brake horsepower and it hits 62 miles per hour from rest in 3.4 seconds, making it marginally quicker than the big Audi. But if you're worried that the addition of the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system is going to ruin the traditional AMG tail-happy fun, fear not, as this is the only estate car we can think of that comes with a drift mode. This effectively disconnects all drive to the front wheels, turning it into a bit of a hooligan. It's more of a driver's car than the Audi then, but can it compete for day-to-day usability? Well, the interior is just as plush, making use of all the usual E-Class luxuries. It gets a few special AMG-specific bits, but the dashboard remains as beautifully sculpted as ever. We prefer Audi's infotainment though, and the RS6 somehow seems just a little bit more modern and contemporary. But for all the Merc's understated styling, put your foot down and heads will turn. It sounds incredible with plenty of pops and crackles as well as its old school V8 roar.
But for our money, we take the Audi. Performance is simply incredible for a car of this size, but it's still every bit as practical as a regular A6. The gorgeous interior is deeply appealing, while the aggressive styling makes this the most head-turning estate car on the market.
Believe it or not, it's been 10 years since we first saw the Nissan Juke at the Geneva Motor Show. And it caused quite a stir, with styling unlike anything else and a striking resemblance to 2009's Kazana concept. One of the very first crossovers that helped to popularise this genre, it seemed like the old Juke would never go away. Finally though, the new one is here, and it still looks just as weird as ever. A clear evolution of the old model, the new Juke continues the love it or hate it styling with a strange front end and a chunkier rear end. It certainly looks more modern, although we're still not quite sold on the weird headlight arrangements. It seems like we're in the minority though, as the previous Juke was a huge sales success for Nissan, despite its even more peculiar face. But despite its initial popularity, the market for crossover SUVs has grown exponentially since the launch of the original a decade ago. In profile, the new Juke actually looks pretty good, with bold, exaggerated wheel arches and tapering roofline, giving it a sporty look. Built at the firm's Sunderland factory in the north of England, the only engine offered is a 1-litre turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol from the Micra, with either a 6-speed manual gearbox or an all-new 7-speed dual-clutch automatic, replacing the old CVT transmission. For now, power stands at 115 brake horsepower, which is enough to see the Juke from 0 to 62 miles per hour in 10.4 seconds for the manual and just over 11 seconds for the auto, with both cars maxing out at just 112 miles per hour. Thanks to the extended wheelbase, there's now more interior space than before for both knee and headroom, which is especially apparent in the back. Nissan has worked on the driving position too, making it feel more like a car than an SUV. The cabin is still funky though, and really sporty, with flashes of red and gloss black trim. It's bang up to date and features a bright 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are included, along with a useful Wi-Fi hotspot. Sadly though, once out on the road, the Juke's little engine doesn't feel quite up to the job, while the ride leaves plenty to be desired.
But for fans of funky crossovers, there are plenty of other options. The Jeep Renegade, for example, gets some great chunky looks and some genuine off-road capability, something almost unheard of in this segment. It gets a greater range of engines too, all of which are more powerful than the Juke's Micra engine. On the road though, it feels rather old school, as it rolls through corners like a traditional off-roader. So how about the Jeep's sister car, the Fiat 500X? To our eye, this is one of the most stylish cars in this class, with gorgeous bits of chrome trim inside and out and some wonderful retro styling. it's much better suited to road driving than the G2, despite their shared platform.
As ever, we'd recommend saving some cash and getting a regular hatchback instead. But if you do have your heart set on a crossover, make sure you shop around. The Juke's quirky image may appeal to some, but there are better all-rounders out there.
After the break, the new Corvette and Ford's 1400 horsepower EV. Coming up, the Ford Mustang Mach-E 1400. But first,
we cover all kinds of new releases here at AutoMundial, from super minis to supercars. But every now and then we get a real blockbuster. This is the all-new Chevrolet Corvette, and it's perhaps the most important version yet. Because not only is this the first version designed to appeal to buyers around the world rather than just North America, it's also the first ever mid-engine Corvette. Yep, the all-American sports car has come over all European. And yet, despite the new layout, it's immediately recognisable as a Corvette. It's covered in sharp angles and pointy bits with those signature Stingray headlights and an evolution of the quad-tail lights that have become a Corvette tradition. It does look exciting, but also a little awkward, almost like a previous generation car has been stretched in the middle to house the engine. Speaking of which, the new car uses a turbocharged four-cylinder with hybrid assistance. Just kidding, this is a Corvette, so of course it has a massive V8. A 6.2-litre one to be precise, kicking out a rather lowly 495 brake horsepower. That's by no means a small amount of power, but we were expecting more from such a huge motor. Thankfully though, the Corvette is light, and with the optional Z51 pack, is capable of 0 to 60 miles per hour in a deeply impressive 2.8 seconds, on its way up to a top speed of 194. And it isn't just quick in a straight line. As standard, it gets an electronic limited slip diff to help fire you out of corners, while the front splitter and rear wing produce a combined 180 kilograms of downforce. The Z51 pack includes some bigger brakes, adjustable suspension, a sports exhaust and adjusted gear ratios. There are plenty of other must-have options too, but in any guise, this is a very quick car. The cabin looks every bit as exciting as the body, with a modern design and a stunning 12-inch infotainment system. It's practical too, with enough space for 2 sets of golf clubs apparently. Incredibly, despite its supercar tech and performance to match, the Corvette will start at around $60,000 US, a fraction of any of its exotic European rivals.
In the ever-expanding SUV market, the Volkswagen Group continues to improve its range with countless models across its brands. And this is SEAT's latest, the Tarraco. The Spanish brand's first 7-seater SUV, the Tarraco is closely related to the current class leader, the Skoda Kodiaq. Seemingly overnight, SEAT has evolved from a brand with no SUVs to suddenly having 3 to choose from. Such is the way of the current market. It's also the marque's second 7-seater, with the more traditional Alhambra MPV now feeling its age. The Tarraco could be seen as a cut-price Q7 with the same underpinnings as the Skoda Kodiaq. 7 seats, nice engine choices and plenty of space, while keeping that solid VW Group build quality. There are 2 petrol and diesel engine choices to choose from, going from a 1.5-litre petrol to a 2-litre diesel version with different power outputs. Until now, a 148 brake horsepower diesel motor was available as either a manual front-wheel drive or an automatic 4x4. But now, ready for 2021, there's a new option to have the diesel motor with a 7-speed DSG gearbox and front-wheel drive. A plug-in hybrid version is also on its way early next year, with a combined 242 bhp and good for 0 to 62 miles per hour in 7.4 seconds. For now, though, the big Seat comes with a plentiful array of equipment, and driver assist safety systems come as standard, with loads of toys thrown in on higher spec trim levels. The inside is well made and laid out functionally. All models are 7-seaters with space for 5 adults and some children in the third row. Up front is an 8-inch infotainment system, 3-zone climate control with the top spec Excellence Luxe getting some tasty 20-inch alloys, heated seats and privacy glass. Storage in the boot is good for 8 cabin-sized suitcases if you're in 5-seater mode. There's also an underfloor luggage compartment, but it's swallowed up by the spare wheel if you've ticked that option. On the design front, the Seat has modern and functional styling. It's far from mould-breaking, but it's purposeful without shouting too loudly. It wouldn't look out of place on the morning school run while still being a looker, especially with those pointy inset headlights. A prominent radiator grille, LED lights and lighting strip across the boot help it stand apart from the Volkswagen Tiguan Allspace and Skoda Kodiaq, with which it shares a platform.
Speaking of which, the Kodiaq does share a lot with the Tarraco, and it's cheaper, with prices starting at just over £26,000 compared with the £29,000 Seat. While the Tarraco is designed to embody the Spanish brand's sportier image within the VW group, its lower suspension and firmer ride quality don't feel justified compared with the more comfortable Kodiaq. The Skoda also gets more or less the same interior, with the same infotainment and dashboard layout. Other rivals include the new Hyundai Santa Fe, a big bold SUV for those who prefer to stand out. A facelift of the previous generation, this new 2020 car is certainly a head-turner. We've been pretty vocal about our opinions of other manufacturers' big grilles in the past, but this time we have to say we rather like it. After all, this is a big car, and apart from the new hydrogen Nexo, the most expensive Hyundai you can buy here in Europe, with prices starting at almost £40,000. That may sound like a lot in present company, but top-spec Skodas and Seats are comparable. The rest of the car is a little more conventional, but by no means unattractive. The front and rear bumpers have both been updated, so have the head and tail lights. But while Hyundai is calling this a facelift, it consists of much more than just some new body panels. The whole platform has changed, now using the same one as the American market Sonata, giving the Santa Fe access to the same hybrid powertrains. The cabin is smart too, and every bit as practical as its European competition. However, for buyers on a budget, the Hyundai simply can't compete.
While the VW Group continues to cash in on the SUV craze, we can't help but feel the Tarraco has missed the mark. The cheaper Skoda Kodiaq offers everything and more at a lower price point, with even a sporty VRS model on sale. And at least until the plug-in hybrid arrives, the Tarraco seems like a missed opportunity. What could have been a cut-price alternative to the posher Audi SUVs has instead ended up as nothing more than an expensive rebodied Kodiaq. So if you want an affordable SUV with VW build quality, save some money and buy the Skoda.
When we first saw Ford's new Mustang Mach-E last year, it was safe to say that we were a little shocked to find the famous nameplate, synonymous with speed and style, was adorning an electric SUV. And as impressive as it is as the debut EV for the brand, it is tricky for a car like this to get our pulses racing. Now, though, it seems Ford wants to show the world that big electric cars can still thrill like a V8. This wild carbon fibre one-off creation is the Mustang Mach-E 1400, a bewinged sideways monster with, as the name suggests, 1400 brake horsepower. And would you just listen to it? No longer do EVs need to be silent. Built by Ford Performance and pro drifter Vaughan Gittin Jr.'s company RTR, the Mach-E is designed to get seriously sideways. It is, of course, just a prototype, but Ford reckons it will not only persuade more customers to go electric, but also showcase what could be possible with future production EVs. For ultimate tyre shredding ability, it's fitted with 7 electric motors, 3 at the front axle and 3 at the rear, also allowing the Mustang to drive in either front, rear or all-wheel drive for future development purposes. It also makes it an impressively diverse car, and with a hydraulic handbrake on hand for extra skids, it might even be a match for Ken Block's Hoonicorn. And all those aero bits and big wings aren't just for show, producing over a ton of downforce at 160 miles per hour, making this one of the wildest Mustangs we've ever seen.
Join us again next week on AutoMundial as we take a look at the new Range Rover Velar plug-in hybrid.